If we're going to do this, we want to do this right. We want to do it big. We can't do it by raising a $2 or $3 million round. We need to just go raise 20 from the very beginning. I had to be really ruthless and think back about, in the last 5 years, what were actually the decisions that only I could have made. It is a miracle that this company survived. 250 days per year on the road. I was the second highest travel spender at Tesla behind Elon Musk every year that I worked over there. If I'd known how bad this would be, I don't know if I would have done it.
Vivas, welcome to We the Builders. Thank you so much for hosting us at the office.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and thanks for making the trip all the way out here to Mountain View, California.
Oh, it's not that far. We're just 30 minutes out. So in the podcast, I know like we're going to talk about Mitra Chem as well, but I'm more interested in Vivas, like the founder. I'm interested in learning how people, learn to make this crazy decision in their life. Where does that risk appetite come from? Is it, I think Peter Thiel talks about mimesis a lot. Is it like just being, you spend time studying at Stanford? Is it like that, studying there? Or was it people you were around that were starting companies that inspired you? What is it, that goes on in your early upbringing or early transformational experiences that, leads you to this decision? So my first question is, what was the most transformational experience, in your life that gave you the permission to just do things?
I've been an immigrant twice in my life. So I moved from India to Singapore.
Okay.
And I moved from Singapore to the United States. And I've been in the US now for almost 25 years.
Wow.
And I think the immigrant's journey and the immigrant's mentality is the same that you need to win in any entrepreneurial venture. You just have to have a tremendous desire to succeed. And I think what a lot of people don't understand about being an immigrant is it's the ultimate one-way door. Like, you are saying goodbye to your country, to your culture, to your family, to an entire community that you're from, that you've been in for generations upon generations, to move to a country where you may not necessarily speak the language and you know nobody and you don't know how the system works, to start all over from scratch. Millions of people do this, right? I'm not special in the sense that,
right,
there are, I guess, I'm South Asian. There's 4 million South Asian immigrants who live in the United States, either first or second generation. But the skills needed to survive is something that's inherent to the experience of any immigration, right? It could be like I could move from the United States to like Russia, for example,
yeah,
right? And I would have no network, not know the language, not know the culture, and I have to find a way to survive. When you go through experiences like that early in your life, and especially when you do it multiple times, like I've had the fortune of doing, survival is a skill that's hard-coded into your genes. And I feel like when I look back on my life at what were the instances that led me to being an entrepreneur, there are several, but what are the characteristics that have led me to doing the job that I do? It is very much tied with this whole immigrant experience that I've gone through.
So you mentioned you moved twice. When you moved to Singapore, how old were you? And what did you learn about building a network from scratch in a country like Singapore?
My birth country is India, and Singapore is not that far away. So for a few years in my life, I essentially kind of lived between the two. Like, I'd spend multiple months per year in India until we more permanently settled in Singapore. It was the 1990s. It was a very different time. Singapore was still very much an Asian city on the rise. So in the 1990s, there was this concept of the Asian tigers, and it was the economies of some of the large Southeast Asian cities, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, major economic boom happening on the backs of Japan going through their asset bubble crisis and declining in the role in East Asia, Southeast Asia as being the dominant economic force. And it was matched with the beginnings of the rise of China. Well, in 1997, what I had been in Singapore for nearly a decade at that point was when the Asian financial crisis hit. And so the Asian financial crisis was the reflexive response to the tremendous economic growth that had happened for the 6 years or so before that. And if you look at where Singapore has come now since then, right? It went from being a nation in economic crisis and a nation in public health crisis 5 years later with the SARS pandemic outbreak to now being one of the most important financial logistics hubs and trade hubs in the world. Part of the reason for why that's happened is because they were very open-minded to meritocratic talent from all over the world coming and building the country. There was an openness to culture and business, and there was an acceptance that the best ideas may not necessarily be homegrown, and we need to attract the best talent possible. There are very few places in the world like this. So I commend my long-term home, Singapore, for being open-minded in this way. The other place I feel is the United States of America. Right? America has always been a refuge for people who want to build a better life.
Yeah.
And when we moved to the United States, so my parents made the decision, right? Like I was obviously still in middle school, going to high school. They saw it as a one-way door. I didn't really understand the importance of moving to the United States. Now that I've been here for nearly 25 years, I realize that's probably the biggest one-way door basically since I had a kid that I've ever taken in my life. And I appreciate what the United States has to offer because it's a very unique place in this open acceptance of meritocratic ideas and wanting to prioritize the best possible talent to win for the benefit of the entire economy and for the benefit of the entire country.
So going back, you mentioned that, what immigrants have to do is build these networks from scratch, in a new place they go to and, learn to survive. My dad was in the military. We moved every 2 years. I think you get an essence of the same thing. You're in a new place, completely start from scratch. You would have had to do this in Singapore first and then the US. Is there any vivid memory of, what you learned in that time?
The difficulty of going through this kind of experience of adapting to a new culture is there's a concept called code switching, which is how you behave at home is different than how you behave outside the home, right? In the generation of South Asian immigrants, I think, who left India and Pakistan and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh in the 1980s and 1990s, there's very much a desire to preserve the culture at home, but you felt conflicted because you wanted to adapt when you were outside the home.
Yeah.
So code switching was very much part of my life. I speak my mother tongue at home with my parents, and we live, I would say, a very traditional lifestyle in the house that is very befitting of what we would have lived if we stayed in India. But on the other hand, I work Western jobs. I've had a very Western education.
Yeah.
I have a very Western mentality. I speak with an American accent, right? So I've had to learn to adapt to the circumstances around me.
Yeah.
And code switching is part of life as an entrepreneur as well, right? You're constantly dealing with different types of people in different settings. How you deal with investors is different than how you deal with customers, is different than how you deal with employees, is different than how you deal with the community, is different than how you deal with the government.
Yeah.
These are all very different manners
Yeah.
of existing, and there's no one day or one challenge that's the same as before. Being adaptable and learning how to code switch, which was inherent to my personal experience for many years as an immigrant, has also informed the way in which I think about being a CEO and entrepreneur now.
That is very interesting, and how that shapes you to be a better CEO. The government Vivas is different from, the employee-facing Vivas, and that's different from, the fundraising Vivas maybe.
But this is also why I'm proud to be American.
Yeah.
Because I do think that the United States of America as an amalgamation of different people from different places in the world over multiple generations, as being a country that historically has been very open to the acceptance of people that bring the best ideas and skills and talents, allows for an amalgamated American experience, but that also leaves space for an Indian American experience that's different than a Russian American experience, that's different than a Chinese American experience in its own ways.
What do you mean by that?
If I think about my peers from school, for example, I've had the good fortune of going to two great American universities to earn an engineering and business degree. My classes were highly diverse. I met people who originated from all parts of the world who came to the United States for a better education. And for all of them, they may have spoken different languages at home, they may have eaten different food at home, but there are certain American values that brought them together to wanting to opt into higher education in the United States. A belief in meritocracy, the belief that the best education system possible and the best economic opportunity possible was still in the United States for them, Some of them chose to go back to their home countries. And, of course, I think that that's a valuable thing for the whole world, for us to export knowledge and ideas.
Yeah.
And to create interactions amongst different people from different parts of the world interacting here in the United States. But those who chose to stay in the U.S., who chose to contribute to the economy and chose to contribute to the culture of the U.S., our experience in the United States is made richer by the fact that we have so many different people from around the world over here. For example, at home, I basically only eat Indian food.
Same. Yeah.
But you go outside this office,
Yeah.
you walk 5 minutes, there's a Vietnamese restaurant, there's a Thai restaurant, there's a Mexican restaurant, there's a Korean restaurant.
Yeah.
I'd be happy eating in any of these places, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I'm not code switching by doing that. I'm just enjoying great food from around the world.
Yeah. That's an interesting. Okay, so that's like I guess like maybe on a cultural level, like how food and maybe television is another thing that shapes culture. Hollywood and I guess I hadn't thought about it in an education sense, where another thing America is exporting is education, or like the American way of training, and then these people go back and build the Silicon Valleys of their respective countries, or they build the Wall Streets of their respective countries and take that knowledge back to their home countries, or the ones that decide to stay are here for what America has to offer, which would be you refer to meritocracy a lot, which is meritocracy of ideas, freedom to be able to say things you believe in, and not get locked up, and things like that enable this free or like this seamless dispersion of ideas, and that is what leads to places like this. That's what leads to I guess the best talent still having the desire to keep moving to this country, right?
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
The United States has enduring advantages because of openness to the best ideas. I sincerely hope that this enduring advantage continues for generations upon generations.
Yeah.
Because
Amen.
Now that I've immigrated to the United States, my children are the first ones in our entire family born in the United States.
Yeah.
They certainly will not be the last.
Yeah.
So I hope that there's a better and better country for them here as well.
What do you think will make or keep America at the frontiers?
And openness and acceptance to new ideas, regardless of the source, is number one.
Do you think that's happening? That continues to happen right now?
I do believe yes, and I think that we need to look past sensationalistic headlines to see where it's happening. Can I give you a personal example of this?
Please.
Mitra Chem is very fortunate to have so many talented people working over here. 50% of our US-based employees are not US citizens. We have international offices and what you would call local team members, so people who are born and raised in those countries working in those international offices. In many of these countries, the social incentives are geared towards you getting a very safe government job, or you going to work for the large national champion company, so that you have guaranteed employment for life.
And it's also social status.
It's social status, right? It affects everything. It affects what house you buy. It affects your marriage prospects. It affects what schools your kids get to go to. There's rigid social hierarchy tied to these things. The reason for why our international employees who have left these high status jobs to come work for MitraChem, explicitly said to me by more than one person at this point, is they want the international transfer. They want to live in the US because they think that their kids will live a better life and have access to better education in the US. How is this any different than my own family 25 years ago?
Yeah.
The American dream is well and alive. The fact that I can even sit here and run a company like this and now pass on that opportunity to other intelligent people, regardless of their background, like I am a product of the American dream, and MitraChem will be the platform to create other products of the American dream as well.
And I think like this narrative is overblown on especially X Twitter, where people say that with all these policy changes or because of politics, top talent will stop wanting to move to the US. That's not true. I think like what we see every day, that's what I see as well. I work with a lot of early stage entrepreneurs. Everybody still wants to build in the US or work for companies like MitraChem in the US, and that's their chance at the American dream, and they want to contribute to this economy.
The most valuable brand in the world,
Yeah.
the most valuable zip code in the world is the United States of America.
Yeah.
It took centuries for that to happen. It will not suddenly disappear.
Yeah.
Are there challenges? Yes, there are.
Yeah.
Okay. I said America is a great country, but I didn't say America is a perfect country.
Yeah.
So there are certainly challenges to it.
Yeah.
However, I do think that there's broad recognition of the importance of a meritocracy of ideas as being a foundational pillar for American exceptionalism. A company like MitraChem is possible because of it. Other companies, like the ones that your community is helping to build, is possible because of it too.
Yeah, 100%. Well, while we're on that, tell us more about MitraChem.
MitraChem was founded to solve 3 problems. The first is speed, using an in-house AI advantage to radically reduce the time to bring a materials product from lab to market. The second is an initial product focus on iron-rich cathode active material for lithium-ion batteries. And the third is building manufacturing scale in the United States to offset our overt geopolitical dependence on China for critical supply chains. The company was founded as an amalgamation of the meeting point of 3 different megatrends that are happening. The first is electrification. Mm-hmm. The second is AI. And the third is deglobalization. We founded the company nearly 5 years ago, and we've raised about $100 million of equity capital and about $150 million of government grants from the United States DOE and the state of Michigan.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And we have products that are ready to go to market, and we have chosen a manufacturing partner with whom we can work. And now we're focused on building this first factory here in the US.
Well, can you dive a little bit deeper into the founding moment? Like, how long have you been thinking about, wait, what was the problem that you identified? How did you identify it? What's that process of coming up with, this is something I want to dedicate, the next 10, 20 years to? Because that's usually what it takes, like that sort of a mindset. Is it a 6-month process? Is it a 1-year process? What was your experience?
I think it's a lifetime, multi-generational process. Decisions like the one that I took to become an entrepreneur, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a one-way door. I will never be able to go back to working at a big company ever again.
Right.
Because I'm just too addicted to the game of entrepreneurship at this point. My family in India, so multi-generation, has owned and operated chemicals businesses.
Oh, wow.
So it was just in my DNA that at some point I was going to end up being in the chemicals business. I just didn't realize it at the time.
Interesting.
These things, your destiny is already preordained. You just don't realize it early in your life sometimes.
Did you spend time with those members of a family growing up?
Of course, we still run the family business in India.
Oh, okay.
Right? I live in the United States, so
Right,
I'm not very
of course.
involved with it, but take a lot of pride in the fact that the multi-generational family business is older than the country of India itself, right? And will continue to last even longer than I'm alive.
Can you talk a little bit more about the business?
Well, in South India, where I'm from, there's a lot of textile manufacturing that's done.
Yeah.
And so family business makes dyes and chemicals for the textiles industry. And so like I said, the destiny was preordained. Huge industry, right? Great business. And what I love about it is it's a business that's uplifted the entire community. If you think about the contribution of the business to the value of the society, the number of jobs that are created, the economic stability that comes from having a reliable income source for the whole community, it uplifts entire towns.
You end up creating generational wealth for thousands of factory workers that would have been living a life in a village to moving to a city and so on.
And this is the story of so many different places in the world.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to my point around growing up in one of the Asian tigers in Singapore at the time. Watching the city, it's a country, but it's effectively a city on the rise. Knowing that story is the story of so many communities across Asia that were on the rise at the time. And also in my lifetime, give credit where credit is due, seeing China go from a very much underdeveloped country in the 1990s.
Yeah.
Like, Chinese people left China to come to Singapore to get better economic prospects.
Yeah.
And then that trend reversed in my lifetime because China did a phenomenal job of building their country. So how did China ultimately do it? They did it in a very different way than India or Singapore, but industry was a big part of how China built the entire country up.
Going back to like the family business, because it really interests me how, just having something like that in the family or exposure to that, you don't know how it's wiring you differently, looking back in life. Did you spend time, at the factories, or what was your limit of exposure to the business growing up?
It was more about the mindset and the conversations that happened on a daily basis in the household.
Can you share, do you remember any of those conversations? Or
the way that business works in Asia is, I feel like North Americans will tend to differentiate between their business life and their personal life. There is no division.
No.
Especially from when you're in an Asian family business, right? There is absolutely no division between the two. And frankly, I live my life the same way right now. Like, I live a short walk from the office. Much to my wife's chagrin, sometimes I feel like my household and the office kind of just meld into one. Yeah. And so a downside of being in a family business is every dinner ends up being a work conversation. Yeah. Right? The upside is you get influenced in a myriad unconscionable ways that you don't even think about and don't even realize until you're later in life. Yeah. That the daily conversations, interactions that you had molded your worldview and the way in which you could think about running your own business one day.
It's like very similar to, right? There are generational family businesses that have existed in the US and Paris, Hermes, or, some of these like luxury fashion brands are 150 years old and they've been passed down from generation to generation. And it is in some ways an outcome of those dinner table conversations, right? The youngest family members are apprentices to that business at 7 years of age or 5 years of age. Since they get consciousness and they're able to make sense of the world, they're getting trained to run that at 20, right? And when you come up with something who's 20 and has been, has all those years of knowledge, they're a decade ahead of, the 35-year-old executive who comes in and is like, why am I, reporting to this case?
No, the incentives are different. You think about your decisions in the time span of decades. Yeah. Versus if you think about running a public company in the US, a CEO has to optimize for the quarter. Yeah. If you are thinking solely about the quarter, it is difficult to think about the compounding nature of the incremental gains you can make on a daily basis.
Correct. That is a great framing. Do you think you were learning compounding from those family conversations, or like how they were thinking about or talking about like the future of the business?
Absolutely. You're thinking about the most supreme decisions that you make in the business have to be able to withstand 3 generations of scrutiny after it. And by the way, when I say the most supreme decisions, you only have like one of these every 3 or 4 years. A clear fork in the road. Yeah. Where you have to decide which one of the 2 paths to take, and the business is forever changed because of it. Now, the reality of running a Silicon Valley startup is we're nearly 5 years old. I can look back. As a matter of fact, I journaled about it this morning. I can only think of 3 supreme decisions that I have made in the 5 years that I've run this company, where it was a clear fork in the road, and if I chose the wrong path, it would have been imminent bankruptcy.
What were your 3 decisions?
The first was choosing to work with Chamath Palihapitiya, who led our Series A and found us when we were nobody and nothing. And he has been a phenomenal mentor. He's still the chairman of our company. And without choosing Chamath, who you choose as your first venture capitalist, as your first investor, and as your business partner in the early days.
True for business partners, yeah.
I mean, it's like choosing your partner in life, right? And I'm really happy with the choice that we made. Now, obviously, we have a much bigger board. We have hundreds of investors, and we've got dozens of employees. But that early decision and the contributions that he made in the very beginning, choosing him over the other offers that we had at the time, ended up being a supreme decision that our team had to make.
Can you share a little bit more about that choice, and how did you end up meeting him?
So I met Chamath on Twitter.
Oh, classic.
Yeah. I just, I started tweeting at him, but the story goes back it goes back a little bit. my defining entry-level experience in my career was working at Tesla. I joined Tesla before the Tesla Model 3 was even a product that was on the roads. Very different company back then. Like, I could talk to, I just walked to Elon's desk and talk to him.
Yeah.
Right. Which now it's a different world.
Yeah.
And when I left working at Tesla, because Silicon Valley is still a very small place.
What year did you join Tesla?
I was there from summer 2016 through approximately summer 2019, which is when I went to Stanford Business School.
Pre-2019 is when it was a completely different company.
Absolutely different company.
Right,
I mean, I don't think we had more than 3 weeks of cash ever in the entire time that I was at Tesla.
Oh, shit.
Like,
so it was basically...
It is a miracle that this company survived.
Yeah.
You look at Tesla today, it's $1 trillion company.
Yeah.
That is not the Tesla that I know or I remember.
Yeah.
Miracle of the highest order that we were even making cars at the time.
Yeah.
Multiple times where supreme decisions were made by Elon to make sure that the company didn't die. And give him credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
He got every one of those decisions right. Because if he got a decision wrong, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation.
So is that where you picked up the framework to make those three supreme, like a supreme decision every few years in a business?
Time compression is a part of this, because when you're thinking about clock cycles of having only 3 weeks of cash, then every single decision that you make every single day actually matters.
Right.
But in the time span of long-term value creation,
Yeah.
when you think about the generational impact of decisions, there's only 2 or 3 of those that happen in a 5-year span that really matter. I had to be really ruthless and think back about, in the last 5 years, what were actually the decisions that only I could have made because I had the proper context, the authority, the risk tolerance, and zero aversion to, any judgment from anybody.
Right.
Which is a big part of what holds most people back from making tough decisions. People fear judgment.
Right.
I got over that a long time ago.
How did you get over that?
Well, I got over that by seeing what happened when I worked at Tesla. This was the most shorted stock in the entire world, and every other article in the newspapers at that time was, when is Tesla going bankrupt?
Yeah.
Where are the people who were writing articles about Tesla's imminent demise? Where are the hedge fund managers who shorted Tesla? And where is Tesla now?
It's a miracle.
There is a clear winner in all of this.
Yeah.
If you stay relentlessly focused on your goal and you believe in what you are doing, it just doesn't matter what other people think and other people say.
What does that relentless focus look like? What did that look like in that 2016 to 2019 period?
We just had to get as many cars on the road as possible to generate cash flow as quickly as possible.
Every single decision had to contribute to...
Every
put
single
more
day it
cars
was,
on
how
the
many
road.
vehicles can you get on the road today? Everybody worked a factory job. So I got a forklift license. I learned how to drive a forklift in the factory.
Oh my
I spent
God.
several weeks doing that. It was actually some of the most enjoyable times I've had in my career, which, think about it for a second. I am very lucky to have had significant education,
Yeah.
to have given me the opportunity to work in white-collar desk knowledge creating jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I think the most defining experience I had within my time at Tesla was doing the blue-collar job of driving the forklift.
Is this where are these the early seeds of MitraChem?
I think the early seeds of MitraChem were sown when I saw that against the expectations of the entire world, Tesla succeeded beyond everybody's wildest dreams. And that the earliest and truest believers all got to benefit from being part of that. In the same way that I felt like our family business and lifted up an entire community,
Yeah.
there are thousands of employees, tens of thousands of loyal shareholders of Tesla who benefited
Oh yeah.
and were proud.
Yeah.
Like, I personally benefited
It's generational
from
wealth.
this.
Yeah. 2020, that's the first time it touched $1 trillion, right? That's when the first time investors were like, oh shit, okay, this company can be a thing. So you were relating it back to a consequential decision making, or as you call it, supreme decisions that you have to make every few years. You mentioned working with Chamath was one, but it relates back to your experience at Tesla, and part of it is your experience seeing or hearing your family talk about running the business. Where were you going with that? I think I just want to bring you back to that decision.
Running the company, so even choosing to do a company in the first place was a supreme decision. Let me rewind the clock 6 years. I was at Stanford Business School. Very fortunate to have had the chance to go there. In the time that I was at Stanford, I was on education leave at Tesla.
Okay.
So the way that works is they stop the clock on your vesting on your equity package, and they keep your strike price at the original strike price. And then when you rejoin the company, you just start vesting your old package again at the same price without a one year cliff.
Oh, wow.
So if the price goes up, it's a really good deal for you.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a way for them to retain top talent that goes to notable
business schools,
notable engineering or business schools. Yeah. Okay. There are many other people who had chosen to do that. So the former CFO of Tesla is an example of he had taken education leave and he had kind of pioneered the concept within the company. In the time that I was at Stanford Business School, Tesla stock price went up 25x. And so the value of the unvested equity that I had, that I would have immediately gotten had I gone back to work, was millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Dude, I am an immigrant.
Yeah.
People come to America for a financial opportunity like this and for a job security opportunity like this.
That was generational wealth right there.
But the supreme decision at the time was me recognizing,
you left it on the table.
If I chose to go and take this stock package for millions of dollars, I would never make billions of dollars. I would never create thousands of jobs. And I would never leave my own mark so that other people could join my company and say that they made millions of dollars.
Were you already thinking about starting a company? Were those seeds already there? Or did this decision came first where you were like, I will figure out what I want to work on, but this is not it?
So I was inspired by Elon. I was inspired by having a chance to work with him, by having a chance to see it happen. I was also pushed to do this in a very positive way through the mentorship of somebody like Chamath. I was inspired to work with my two co-founders, Professor Will Chu and Chiru, who are still my business partners today and still very valuable thought partners in this business. For me, it was never about the money. Like what the money represents is security and it represents optionality. So when I say I'll never make billions of dollars, it's like, okay, somebody who's worth billions of dollars is driving the same car as me and is using the same phone as me. Right? And eating the same quality food from Whole Foods as me. Like, if you want to debate that, fine. But for the most part, life is pretty good.
In America, especially.
Yeah.
In other parts of the world, that might not be true.
It was never about making the money. It was about creating the opportunity, and it was just about the winning.
Yeah. But did you, was the idea of MitraChem already, conceptualized when you were debating that decision?
MitraChem is a crystallization of some of the ideas that I had about how the battery materials industry could improve from my time at Tesla and observing what I thought were shortfalls in the way that Western companies approached it.
Behind, outside driving the forklifter, was that your full-time role?
No, it wasn't my full-time role, and I'm glad you clarified, because most of the time that I spent at Tesla was sourcing the battery supply chain for Tesla. So the one that my claim to fame within the small world that is the battery materials industry is signing up the long-term lithium contracts for Tesla.
Okay.
So the contracts that I signed on behalf of the company in 2018, still to this day, are the contracts that Tesla is using to procure their lithium worldwide. And it's July 2025 when we're recording this video, right? So here we are 7 years later.
Oh, wow.
And
can you speak a little bit more about those contracts? Whatever you can say publicly.
I mean, the longest term contracts that were ever done in the lithium industry before I took this role at Tesla were 3 months. And Elon, being Elon, threw out a gauntlet and looked at me and said, "You're going to do 10-year contracts." And I was like, "All right, man. Sure. If you're going to push me in that direction, let's do it."
Why was it important to do long-term contracts?
It was an existential risk to have access to supply of critical materials to build batteries for EVs, because unlike the other automotives that were dipping their toes in EVs, Tesla did not have an internal combustion engine vehicle business to fall back on. So they had to make the EV business work. which
Right.
means they had to have access to batteries and battery supply chain.
And like, is it just supply or stability of supply? And how much of it was like offshore, onshore? How do you deal with the complexity of, the offshore deals? And
I went to 50 different countries when I was at Tesla to strike deals and to do business. Very fortunate to have had this opportunity in my life. Up until this point in my life, going abroad meant I was going to India to see family,
Yeah.
which is, of course, very nice. But there was a whole big world outside of that I didn't get to explore. So it was a heavily international job. I spent like 250 days per year on the road.
wow.
I don't even know why I paid rent in San Francisco.
Were you
But,
married at the time?
I was not married at the time.
I see.
Which made it
which-
easier. And
yeah, which helps.
I have a very supportive wife
Yeah.
who, even today, running this business, like last year, running this business, I spent 227 days on the road.
Oh my God.
It's not easy
Yeah.
by any means, but it's what it takes to get a business up off the ground and running. But the internationalization of the efforts that I took to source a battery supply chain for Tesla laid the foundation for the network that ultimately helped me build this business as well. It showed me that the energy industry, the chemicals industry, these are global industries with scale for impact that reaches billions of people. But it also gave me more assurance around some of the commentary that I had in the earlier part of this podcast, which is there's beauty in every culture. There's a lot of richness in lots of parts of the world. There's no place like America.
It strengthens that thing that you already know. Yeah. That is interesting. Okay, so we're just like tracing back compounding decisions, right? Like compounding decisions, or like if you were to recap all experiences, what are different parts of your life that compounded up to that decision? So one is Tesla's global battery supply chain, unprecedented 10-year contracts. The precedent was 3-month contracts, and you had this impossible job to go and sign these 10-year contracts, and you're spending basically 11 or 10 months a year on the road, right? And that is what basically established your reputation in the industry. That's how you became really well known in the battery supply chain world, right? You built a reputation for yourself. I would argue that is probably better than any MBA program you would have ever gone through. Why choose to go to Stanford?
For me, it was not about getting an MBA. It was about going to Stanford. Stanford is the only business school I applied to.
Why? Well, what does the Tesla brand not get? Okay, so at the time, Tesla wasn't maybe that successful, but what did the Tesla brand, what would it not get you that the Stanford brand
If you think
would?
about the number of companies that come out of Stanford University that are world-changing every year, the intersectionality of ideas from so many different disciplines, the fact that Tesla attracts global talent, Stanford attracts global talent, which now Tesla does as well.
Yeah.
And the unique experience of having a lot of time wealth as a student, which is difficult to do when you're spending a lot of time on the road.
That is true, but at this point, if you're a U.S. citizen, right, you could, if you have a visa that's affiliated to your job, it becomes challenging. But if you're a student, if you're a citizen, you could just take, there was a risk-adjusted bet. Now I get it.
Are you telling me to just take a year off to start a business?
Yeah. No, or 2
It's a
years off.
possibility. So
Yeah, it's a
by
possibility,
no
right.
means, I want to be very
Yeah.
clear about this to everybody.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to Stanford
Yeah.
to be successful. You don't have to get an MBA to be successful.
Yeah.
You don't have to do these things to be an entrepreneur.
I'm trying to understand, your thought process behind, choosing Stanford. Well, Tesla brand was strong enough, and
I just wanted
Yeah.
to get exposure
yeah,
to a diverse group of people,
right,
and I thought that I would learn something
right,
by going back to Stanford.
right. So it's network, right? It's the network that brand
It's
attracts.
network, it's learning. It was also, I knew, the last time in my life I'd ever go to a formal educational institution.
right.
And every single person who I knew at the time who had done MBA at Stanford had really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in with an open mind and you try to make the best of the experience, you will learn something. So I thought, let me take the bet. If it doesn't work out, I'm on education leave at Tesla anyway, so I can always go back.
So it makes even more sense that Tesla allowed you to take that education leave, which kept the stock price at its original price. That makes sense. It's a risk-adjusted bet.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And going to if I had not gone to Stanford, I would have never met my co-founder, Professor Will Chu.
Right.
And through him, wouldn't have met my other co-founder, Chiru.
Right.
I wouldn't have had the time wealth to create the knowledge that I was creating on Twitter at the time, which caught the attention of Chamath and started a conversation.
Right.
Beyond Chamath, I had multiple investors come into our first round back then. Almost every single one of them was introduced to me by a professor at Stanford. There are many ways in which I was able to use the network that I had to leverage for the benefit of MitraChem,
right,
and ultimately for myself as the CEO and founder of MitraChem. Stanford is not the only way to do it. It's a pretty phenomenal way to do it, though.
Okay, so that's where you met. Now, walk me through the founding moment again. You mentioned Chamath was partially also like pushing you. You met what came first? Did you meet your co-founders there first, and did you guys start discussing battery supply chains? What did that process look like? And then what's the timeline of when Chamath came into the picture and he was like, okay, like this is the biggest opportunity. Let's go for it.
All of you can find this on YouTube right now. On March 2nd, 2020, I gave an hour-long lecture at the Stanford Energy Seminar about problems in the battery supply chain. So the lecture was from 4 to 5 p.m. At 5 p.m. is when Stanford's president sent the email to the entire university saying, COVID is here. No more gatherings of more than 2 people. And mind you, I was in a classroom with 150 people staring at me giving this lecture at the time.
Yeah.
So overnight, we went from life is normal to COVID. Professor Will Chu was hoping to come to that lecture, didn't make it to the lecture, heard about the lecture, reached out to me and said, hey, they still say gatherings of 2 people are possible. So I'd love to hang out with you tomorrow at the faculty club at Stanford.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, like that's cool. The faculty club is this beautiful building and I can go get lunch over there with Will. Ended up being the last day that faculty club was open. Will ended up being the last in-person meeting I had for several months after that.
Wow.
And then we didn't really take COVID seriously at the time because we just didn't know. And so I remember it was like 1:30 p.m. on March 3rd. And he said, hey, look, I'm getting an email from my kid's school about, like they're doing COVID shutdown. So I got to get out of here. But like, I enjoyed this. Let's stay in touch. And the temperature started to turn up in terms of COVID on campus at that time as well. Right.
Yeah.
So even I thought, okay, like let me actually take this seriously. And then, in the subsequent next few hours, basically every single hour it got more and more serious. And then all of a sudden we were in full blown COVID. So I actually didn't talk to Will again for a few months just because we were dealing with, our lives in COVID. Right.
Yeah.
But when I got back to campus in September of 2020, when things started to be a little bit more open, that's when we reconnected. And that's when we realized that we both had aspirations to solve the same problems. We just approached it from 2 very different angles. Him being a leading scientist, myself being somebody who had a lot of commercial experience in batteries. What we also wanted to complement our team was a very talented engineer. And that's when he brought on our third co-founder, Chiru, onto the team. Chiru had worked with Will back at Stanford several years ago. And so in the beginning, it was just open-ended conversations where we were brainstorming. It's very academic in nature. I think we would have kept going down this academic path if it wasn't for Chamath forcing a supreme decision onto us and saying, you guys are smart.
Yeah.
You want to solve this problem. I think you're the right team to solve the problem. I think you're just waiting for somebody to push you to do it. So I'm going to push you to do it. Here's a term sheet. You have 2 weeks. Let's start this company together.
Was that like the first pre-seed funding round?
We built it as a Series A because what we told back to Chamath was,
Right.
if we're going to do this, we want to do this right. We want to do it big.
Yeah.
We're going to build a lab. We're going to invest heavily behind hardware.
Right.
And we can't do it by raising a $2 or $3 million round. We need
Yeah.
to just go raise 20 from the very beginning.
Oh, so it was the first round, but it was structured as a Series A.
But
Yeah,
it was our way of poking the bear in the eye a little bit and saying, like, okay, Chamath, are you actually serious about this? And he came back and he said, okay, I buy your thesis. Let's go raise a $20 million round.
And call it a Series
And
A.
he helped us do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your early venture capitalists, whomever backs you in the beginning, they should be motivated to help you raise the initial capital that you need.
Yeah.
This is why it helps to have the right backers behind you from the very beginning.
Yeah.
As you go throughout the journey of building the company, in later stages, the capital providers are not necessarily as involved in operations.
Yeah.
They're involved in more governance.
Mm-hmm.
They dispense advice and they have certain relationships that help you in your company building process.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very beginning, when it's 3 founders literally working in the garage, like actually my garage in East Palo Alto on Beach Street was our first office. Like, we put a whiteboard in there, we put desks in there, we got a DoorDash delivery every day at 1 p.m. to, feed ourselves lunch in the garage.
Yeah.
It was oppressive in the summer. Like, we went from that to now having, this lab and this office and international offices and international operations in a very short amount of time. It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for some of the early decisions that we made, and once again, for making sure that we had the right mentors around us from the very beginning.
What were some... Okay, that's a good thing you brought up. Chamath was one mentor you mentioned. What are some other, role models or mentors you've had, or like this personal advisory group you've had, all the way like Tesla times to pre-Tesla times? Like, who have those people been, and how have you
I'm incredibly thankful to Liam O'Connor, who was my direct boss at Tesla, who gave me all of the opportunities. I was completely unqualified for this job. I have no idea to this day why he hired me, and gave me the remit and a budget and a mandate to go to 50 countries to do deals.
Yeah.
But the culture at Tesla was very much that if you're young, motivated, ambitious, and willing to do the work, that you were given a chance to do it.
Yeah.
And, today I deal with GM is a wonderful investor of ours. The person who was doing the job at GM today that I was doing at Tesla has 30 years of experience. I had like 5 years of experience when I was doing the job at Tesla. So I was lucky to have the opportunity, but that the company was even willing to give that opportunity, that Liam himself was willing to give that opportunity to me. It speaks a lot about the culture over there. That's also why my view on culture at MitraChem is you don't need a lot of people to do the work. You just need the right people.
Yeah.
And investing heavily behind people and giving them the right opportunities early on,
Yeah.
you get to see very quickly who can sink or swim,
Yeah.
and reward the people that swim.
Last year I started doing anecdotally I knew that probably around 5 to 10% of tier 1 employees in any given company have 80% impact, and as CEO everyone wants to increase that type A personality in the company because that's what's going to have the largest impact. And I'm glad you brought this up. So how do you go about recruiting these people, identifying these people, promoting them? Like, what is that culture?
It takes a long time to build trust and to build track record between people. Our executive team here at MitraChem, we have either known each other personally or were recommended very strongly by somebody that we trust. And, for many years before that.
Right.
I think about, so for example, Chiru, my co-founder, and Professor Will Chu have known each other for 20 years at this point.
Oh, you known?
They've known each other for 20 years.
How did you build trust with them in a short amount of time?
Because Will and I were connected to each other by somebody that we both trust a lot.
That makes sense.
So these things don't happen on accident. Like,
yes,
I think,
I agree.
There's kind of a fable of like, you walk down Campus Drive at Stanford University, you run into somebody random and you start a $1 billion company with them. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay, like that's like fairy tale type stuff.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of mythologizing of like Larry Page and Sergey Brin met on accident at Stanford University. No. There were so many interconnected personalities at Stanford's computer science department in the mid-1990s, pushing them to start this company, introducing them to somebody like John Doerr,
Yeah.
right, who was their initial venture capitalist, it wasn't an accident.
No.
There was the social pressures within the small community where they lived pushed them towards starting this company, and then the larger and broader community helped them get to where they are today. A lot is made of the Facebook founders.
Yeah.
Right. So Dustin Moskovitz, Eduardo Saverin, Mark Zuckerberg. There's a fourth gentleman whose name I unfortunately don't remember right now, about how they all met on accident. It's easy to take a revisionist view on the mythologizing of the founding of a company, but if you look at the facts of how they all got together and started the company, I think you'll see a very different story. I think you'll see that these things just didn't happen on accident. Yeah.
The co-founding decisions are another supreme decision, to use your language. It's another supreme decision, which is, you have to be able to trust these people really well. And that high trust either comes from years or decades of working together, or like these mutual introductions through people
the only difference between, and this is going to sound a little crude, the only difference between me and my business partners, and business partners is co-founders, my most important investors, and even our executive team, many of whom have given up other lucrative opportunities to join us. The biggest difference is we live in different houses. As compared to us and our spouses, right? But all of our financial futures are tied together. All of our emotional health is tied together by virtue of having to spend a lot of time with each other. All of our careers are intertwined. It is a true partnership.
I actually, one of my friends I was recently speaking to.
Can I say one more thing on this?
Yeah,
the reason why I talk a lot about things like you tie your financial future to your co-founder, and I talk a lot about money as an entrepreneur, is these are the topics I wish people had talked about when I was starting a company. Like I didn't grow up super wealthy, right? But I grew up wealthy in different ways, right? I grew up great family, great values, great history, grew up in a business family. But the understanding that I have about how much you are tying your future to your business partners hit me really hard when I was doing this company, right? And when all of us started to have kids and started to grow families of our own, decisions that I make affect the financial futures of a lot of people over here. People shy away from talking about these things, and I'd rather just put it out in the open and say, like, yeah, everybody wants to live a better life, right? Money's not the only part of it, but why do people join startups? They join startups for the promise of the equity compensation that they're getting over here. That is a differentiating characteristic of Silicon Valley as compared to many other places in the world. That there's almost religious zeal around the potential of equity as a force for the betterment of your own life and as an incentive tool to align your interests with the other people who are around you as well.
What part of this people shy away from, and why do you think people shy away from it?
Because it's dirty to talk about money. You shouldn't be building companies because of making money, right? And by the way, I believe that if the only reason why you're building a company is to make money, you will fail.
Yeah, most likely.
You will definitely fail, because just wanting to make money is not a mission in life. It should be a consequence of you fulfilling your mission. If you build a great product that people want at the right time when it's right for society, don't worry about the money piece. But don't pretend it doesn't exist.
How do you conclude that it's the right timing? When you met Professor Will, how did you, what were the different...
There were too many forces that came together at the same time for me to ignore the warning signs. The fact that within a very short amount of time, I met Will, I met Chiru, I had to make a decision on going back to Tesla. Chamath was pushing us towards this outcome. I just knew that if I didn't start a company then, I would never do it. That if I went back to Tesla, that there would be a one-way door. Ironically, going back to Tesla was a one-way door.
Right.
And that it was a fork in the road.
Right.
Go back to Tesla and accept that path, or take the path uncharted, and that was it.
So it was maybe 2 years of converting all that equity into millions of dollars, or this chance to pursue what you believe to be a life mission, which may or may not translate into generational wealth, but is definitely going to impact way more lives, is going to impact way more people if you do it right, if you end up being successful. Mad respect. There are not a lot of people who truly leave something on the table. Like that is.
But
yeah.
My baseline is well covered. Like, let's just be clear. Okay?
Right.
The jump of leaving India for a different country
Yeah.
is a far greater delta than that which I took as a Western educated, Stanford degree holding.
Oh right, yeah. The downside was
American citizen.
Right, of course.
Like,
the downside is,
dude, my life is
basically-
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So even if you did not end up at Tesla, the downside is okay. And MitraChem doesn't work out. The downside is you end up you're on a longer time horizon, longer path to getting there, but you do eventually.
As an objective third-party observer, you can look at somebody like me and say, okay, well, if this guy's company fails, then like, so what? He can go get a job.
Right.
And that kind of risk baseline shifting enables you to take far greater risks in your life. Already now, so 5 years ago as compared to now, right? 5 years ago when this company was started, I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, and I just lived a much more flexible life. Like I didn't own a home.
Yeah.
Now, if you told me to start MitraChem all over again today, I don't know how my decision-making calculus would work right now, because I have a house, a wife, kids. Like it's different.
What does that change most?
First of all, it's focused my attention a lot better.
Uh-huh.
It's also shown me that I made the right decisions, because so another quality of being an immigrant is you're never doing something for yourself. Like your efforts are not about yourself living a better life.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the next generation living a better life than you.
Mm-hmm.
So
and also in many cases uplifting your parents' lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my folks have done wonderfully. I'm very happy for them. Let's be clear. They also live a better life by virtue of them choosing to live in the United States.
Yeah.
And so, very proud of my folks. But now it's about what's the next generation, like how can the next generation live a better life than me? Live a 10x better life than me. This entrepreneurial endeavor that I'm taking on, I believe, is one vehicle with which to do it. Now, if all I do when I die is hand off stock in a multi-billion-dollar corporation to my kids, I have totally failed as a parent, right? Because imbuing values, imbuing character, like these matter more than money.
Yeah.
Right? If all you're doing is money, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
If you're doing the other things and then you happen to make money on the side, then it's cool.
Right. What kind of values do you care about instilling in your kids?
I would love it if...
And how old are they?
Well, my kid is 24 days old.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right? And we'll have multiple.
Okay.
But I think about kids as a concept in general because I'm just in that phase of life right now.
Yeah.
And if my kids are motivated enough to do what I did of learning to take really big risks and huge swings to get a multi-generational outcome for their future generations, rather than simply relying on what I have built as their source of their own inspiration and sustenance, then I've done a good job. So in the same way that the foundation was set for me to live a life that's 10x better than one that my parents lived, my kid also has to do 10x better than me in their own way.
Right.
Okay? There is no metric that I'm tying this to.
Right. I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
But the amalgamation of the multiple different metrics that you use to assess what is a successful life, they need to live a 10x better life. They need to aspire to something 10x bigger than me. If they do, then I have done my job.
What is that amalgamation of metrics that you currently use?
So here's my answer to this, which is the answer will evolve over time as you go through life phases. The way in which society is changing right now, because of AI, because of technology proliferation, it's happening so fast that the metrics they use to assess success is very different generation to generation. There's a few that I think are still universal and matter no matter what. So values, character, respect, heritage, tradition, patriotism, like these things all matter generation to generation. But how they view the world is going to be very different than how I view the world, which is already very different than how my parents view the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's an evolving answer. Maybe we'll come back to it in a part 2, since it's an evolving answer. Okay, so the founding moment I'll come back to again. Different compounding, factors lead up to it. It's part of it is, you growing up in a business family, having that exposure very early on, you being at Tesla in the time period you were at Tesla where, it was pre-Model 3 production. Everyone was doing everything, including, learning to drive a forklift or getting a license, which is, a very startup experience at a public company. And then you choosing to go to Stanford. What are the other choices on the table at the time?
What do you mean?
In terms of was it going to be a business school for sure? Or what did you
Stanford Business School is the only business school I applied to. If I didn't get in, I would have just kept working at Tesla.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was
that was it. It was a 1 or 0.
It was all in on one decision, one way door.
On the supreme decisions in my life,
right.
I am 1 or 0.
Very interesting. Okay. So you applied to Stanford, you get in.
My undergrad, 1 school.
Which was?
I applied to 1 school, Rice University.
Oh, interesting.
Got in, never looked back.
And you pursued engineering?
Yep.
Electrical
engineering.
Okay. Very interesting. Why Rice?
So Rice is a fantastic school in that the culture is incredible.
Rice is also very entrepreneurial.
So John Doerr is a Rice alum, and there are several Rice alums who started. Brian Armstrong. What appealed to me a lot about the culture is there's no Greek life, so there's no sororities and fraternities. There are residential colleges, and you get sorted into a residential college. It's kind of like Hogwarts and Harry Potter. And every one of them has their own themes and traditions and sports.
Do they compete
teams.
In sports? Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I was 17 years old, I was optimizing for personal growth and not necessarily like a big name brand. Right. And I thought that a school with a great culture would do me well. I did go out and tour many different universities, right? All of whom have redeeming qualities of their own. But I just felt very much at home at Rice. So only school I applied to, got in.
It was a very intentional decision based on research and what you were looking to get out of it.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you did everything you could to get into that particular university. And then grad school, Stanford, or, go back, collect the millions at Tesla. that was it. And you get into Stanford. And then did you know going in that you were going to start a company if you get into the business school?
No, I just wanted to see where my life would go.
I thought you were just keeping choices open.
I wanted to learn. I wanted to meet interesting people.
Yeah.
After spending 250 days per year on the road, I wanted to just sit in one place and enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I was the second highest travel spender at Tesla behind Elon Musk every year that I worked over there.
God. Okay.
Yeah, I actually got in trouble for it. But, good trouble. But it takes a toll.
Yeah. I imagine. I was nowhere near that travel frequency, but I was on the road for the last 6 weeks. Every 2 days I was on a plane, and I'm like, oh my God. I cannot imagine CEOs were doing it for 200 days on straight.
No, there was actually a phase where for about 8 months I didn't have a lease anywhere. Because
it makes no sense.
My lease expired at my place in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And because I had spent such little time over there, I just decided, my parents live in Texas, and there was an international airport close to them. Yeah. And people at the office over here were used to me being gone. And I did the math, and I realized if I just stay at the Hampton Inn, that's near the Tesla headquarters, for the 5 nights per month that I'm in the California, San Francisco Bay Area anyway.
Makes way more sense.
That makes way more sense, right? And so, I lived out of a suitcase for 8 months. I had 4 shirts and...
Oh my God. That's what it feels like right now since I'm on the road a lot.
But it's extreme resource optimization, which is also a core skill for entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Things you can do when you're in your 20s. It's a little bit harder for me to do that right now.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed doing that. That was a phase of life where I was completely untethered to anything. I could go anywhere I wanted to for anything. I worked all the time.
Yeah.
Right? People at Tesla probably got a little annoyed by how much I was gone, but I made the best of my life then.
Okay, so now you're at Stanford, and COVID happens, and you give this lecture. Why were you giving that lecture? What gave about? How did that lecture come about?
Professor Dean Arun Majumdar, who is the dean of the Stanford Door School, I got introduced to him. I was telling him about my work at Tesla, and he said, "Hey, we have this thing called the Stanford Energy Seminar. We really like more industry perspectives to be represented over here. We'd love it if you can come and talk about what you see from a commercial perspective as problems in the battery supply chain." And so I thought, it's a service to the community for me to get up there and talk about my experiences. Maybe somebody will find some benefit. I didn't realize it was going to lead to me meeting my co-founder at the time. But you can only connect the dots looking back.
Yeah.
These accidental happenstances, they're preordained in your life. You just don't know it at the time.
Yeah. But pretty incredible story. Last 5 years, what have you learned about fundraising? You've raised over $100 million.
Fundraising is hard. It is time consuming. It is all consuming. And you will take 10 steps back for every one step forward. Yeah. What you need to survive fundraising, which is true of entrepreneurship in general, is you need to outlast the competition. The goal for winning, especially in a hard tech company, is not making the best product. It's not raising the most money. It's absolutely not raising the most money. Let me just be clear about that. People who use fundraising as a metric for success, in the early stages it works, but you need to flip very quickly to cash flow and to product-based metrics being your metric for success. The way in which you outlast the competition is you create the longest emotional runway for yourself. That you keep your emotional range as tiny as possible so that nothing perturbs you. Now, we're all human beings, right? Like, we all have our moments of stress. Learning how to manage stress, learning how to keep emotions in check, finding appropriate outlets so that you can better focus your mind on making the consequential decisions, or supreme decisions as I call them. That's the only job, whether it be fundraising or even in company operations.
You mentioned it's 10 steps forward, 10 steps backwards, one step forward. Like, what do you mean by that? What's an example?
When we raised our Series B, we pitched 600 firms and got one term sheet.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I want you to think about that in context. 600 first calls that lasted approximately 30 minutes. Multiple second calls that lasted 30 minutes to an hour. Multiple third, fourth, fifth calls. So much time invested to only get one term sheet. In the end, the one term sheet is the only one that mattered, right? We were very fortunate to work with GM because they led our Series B.
Right.
And I feel this way about them because they did it when nobody else did. So I will remember that
they
forever.
Had true conviction.
I will remember that. The individual people at GM, okay, there were multiple people who did it. But John Dew, who sits on our board today, Michal Wolkin, Gil Golan, like, I will never forget these names because they backed me when I was nobody. In the same way that Chamath backed me when I was nobody.
Right.
Like, it's really easy to give money to proven things.
Right.
It's really hard to find something unproven and find potential and take the bet on it. Now, I think that they did it not just because they thought the product was cool, but because they thought that we had the ability to outlast the competition.
Right. What does it come down to? How were you able, like, why do you think, looking back, they were able to develop conviction while, like, some others who would have gotten close were not?
They already understood the industry very well. So the three individuals that I named, John, Michal, Gil, they were all in the battery industry at some point. They had a deep technical understanding of what this industry needed. They had a deep understanding of what their company needed and saw that the timing for doing a deal like this to introduce our product portfolio into their broader strategy made a lot of sense. Timing had had a big role, as it does for any deal happening.
Yeah.
The exact same term sheet 6 months before wouldn't have worked. 6 months later wouldn't have worked. Even 2 months later probably wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
Because we would have been bankrupt without it.
Right.
To be honest.
Yeah.
So what they saw, I mean, you'll have to ask them if you ever get a chance to meet them.
Yeah.
I think that they saw, on a technical side, they had conviction around our products.
Are they in Detroit?
They're all over the world.
Oh.
But ultimately, the reason why they chose to do the deal, the reason why anybody chooses to bet on an entrepreneur in the early stages is because they believe in you as a person.
Yeah.
And they believe that if you fail, you will fail in two ways.
Yeah.
You will fail incredibly, such that you have no regrets doing it.
Yeah.
And you will fail ethically,
Yeah.
in that you gave it your best shot and you did not misrepresent why you failed.
Yeah.
And then if you succeed, you lift everybody up with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very, I think, resonant with what I heard other founders say. It's like it does come down to like you're selling yourself in the very early days when you're, it's just an idea, unproven. What did you learn about, portraying yourself as that person who's investable?
That 599th pitch needed to be as excitable as that first pitch. It's hard. When you get 100 rejections in a row, you really question your self-worth.
Yeah.
No matter how cool you think you are, no matter how much bravado you have, when 100 people tell you that your idea is not good enough, it will mess with your psychology.
I think 100 is like probably on the extreme end. I think 20 in you would probably start questioning, or 30 in. Most people, yeah.
600, right? So at 100 in, I was already questioning my self-worth. Yeah. If you had told me you have to do 500 more of these, I would have been like, see you later. Like, I'm going to shut down this company. Yeah. So it's actually better that I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. It's better that I didn't know how much we'd have to work for it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I would have done it. And Jensen Huang actually talks about this in some of his public speaking.
Right. Suffering?
Which is, if I had known how bad this would be, I don't know if I would have done it.
Right. So it's the naivety of starting out.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn about storytelling 599 calls later?
The pitch did evolve over and over again, so it's not like I gave the same pitch at 599 versus number one. Also, this was over the span of like 6 months, right? So obviously as a company we were progressing. But what I learned about storytelling is you need to keep refining the context and refining the story as time goes on to bring in new information so that you're always reacting to the reality of the world around you. Like, I couldn't be talking about press releases from my industry from month number 1 of my fundraising at month number 6.
Right.
I had to make sure that I showed the relevance of the work that we were doing given the context of that moment.
Right.
Because like I said, the same term sheet 2 months before or 2 months after wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
The story that strikes with investors is at a particular moment in time also.
What else do you iterate like over time? Like how do you decide what to discard in that pitch? Like how do you, as you mentioned, like 100 pitches in, you're questioning yourself. So how do you...
You have to learn to be non-emotional about the rejections and actually look at why people are rejecting you.
Right.
And then you have to understand whether the reason they're giving you is the real reason.
So like filter for biases.
Filter for biases, but also most people don't want to give you difficult feedback because it makes them uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's just way easier to say no and not give a reason.
Yeah.
Which is true of most people.
Yeah.
Or say no and blame themselves. Right? And say, oh, like I just don't know enough about this industry.
Yeah.
Which is true of some folks, right? Like it's true of, if I have 3 deals to look at and yours is the one I have to spend the most time educating myself on, but one of those 3 is something that's in my sweet spot, is in my zone of genius, and the diligence threshold for me is low and I can get it on the deal faster, where am I going to spend my time and capital?
Path of least resistance. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is, people want to do easy things.
Yeah.
And that's not an insult.
Right.
That is a heuristic of human beings.
So it's your job to make it very easy.
It's your job to make it easy.
Yeah.
But it's your job to also understand that when somebody gives you feedback, it's tinged with all sorts of personal incentives that you don't see.
Right.
And it's also tinged with biases, especially number 1 being many of them don't want to give you the real reason why they're rejecting you.
That's the hardest
And
one.
the real reason why people were rejecting us for the most part is we were first-time founders building a hard tech company in a high interest rate environment with no manufacturing experience. That was it.
Right. But what about all those before you guys? There were there are hundreds of entrepreneurs before you who were first-time founders. Silicon Valley, that's how Silicon Valley got built. First-time founders building in hard tech, with no manufacturing experience.
For every one that succeeded, there were 100 who failed.
That is true. So they're like thinking about the 100.
There's ability, there's luck, there's timing, but there's also outlasting the competition.
Right.
You know how a hard tech company wins?
How?
Everybody else goes bankrupt and they're the last ones remaining.
So it's making sure you're well capitalized.
Yeah, so think about it. NVIDIA, when NVIDIA founded, there were 90 companies doing what they were doing. When Google founded, there were like 30 search engines.
Yeah, there's
so many.
Yeah, well-funded ones.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, okay, more on culture. You're at close to 100 employees now?
No, we're still at 50 employees.
50. Oh, 50 in this office. I thought more internationally.
50 all around the world, including
all around
here.
the world. Okay. What have you learned about building a team, recruiting executives?
I believe in small teams. I don't think that you need a lot of people to get something done. You need the right people. You need to incentivize people with the appropriate rewards and to show them that longevity is a metric of success. Luckily, because of the culture of Silicon Valley, everyone is an equity owner. Everyone gets the benefit of the upside of this company.
Right.
By the time this company is worth $1 billion, almost every single person is going to be worth $1 million off the equity that they own in this company.
Right.
That's what Tesla did for me. That's what I want to do for other people over here. Once again, money's not the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
But as a consequence, it's a nice consequence.
It helps. Have you thought of org structures differently than other companies? Or like, how do you maintain culture? Like when you're at 10 employees, you're still directly interfacing with them. At 50, like, how do you go about maintaining that culture?
Because of the international nature of my work and the fact that I spend a lot of my time externally, I will admit that it's very hard for me to have a conversation directly with everybody in the company anymore.
Yeah. That
there's like 10 people who I have deep personal interactions with on a daily basis.
Right.
And through many different mediums, right? Whether it be individual Slack messages, emails, phone calls, in-person conversations within the company. Most of our company only gets to hear directly from me in an unscripted long form format at all hands meetings at this point.
Right.
I am trying to travel a little bit less.
Yeah.
And to be here more because the nature of the job has also changed. Like I don't need to spend as much time traveling as I did in the beginning phases of this company.
Right.
And so in terms of my interaction with your average team member, I hope that the surface area for that increases, and I'm going to take steps myself to do that. But going back to my initial point, like I don't think you need a big team. I think companies that use number of employees as a metric for success are doing the wrong thing.
Right. It's productivity per employee that
absolutely
should really
right.
be measuring. So okay, but in that, like, how are you managing maintaining culture? Is it like, again, it goes back to probably trust with like the bringing on the right executive team and
it's nice that most of our company sits within this building.
Yeah.
And that means that there's opportunities for your serendipitous encounters and for hallway conversations to happen and lunchroom conversations to happen for relationship building outside of a work context as well. Unfortunately, what that does is I do feel like our international team members sometimes feel like they aren't fully opted in.
Yeah.
But let's take Korea, for example, where Korea is our biggest presence outside of the United States.
Right.
We have an office right next to Seoul Station. Our team over there gets together over there. Somebody from headquarters is in Korea 3 out of 4 weeks per month, whether it be me or one of the executive team members. So there's enough of cross-pollination between the two offices such that even though it's not the same as being here in person, it still feels like there's a free flow of ideas happening between the two geographies.
Do you still do final interviews for every employee?
Yes, I do. And, I enjoy the process of doing so. It's a very nice way to get to see who all is joining the team. And also for me to keep a finger on the pulse of what it is about MitraChem that attracted them to want to interview here anyway.
How do you evaluate agency in a person?
It's difficult to do so in an interview. And I think having tried it with having done many interviews, There's no perfect formula for an interview.
Is it work trials? Is that the better strategy?
You have to just have real world experience with working with the person. How somebody interviews and how they actually interact are two very different things.
So would you like...
But you have to take chances on people.
Do you like have a project-based approach to it where, you know, they're on a 2-week trial and then...
No. I'd rather just hire them
and
give them runway.
Okay.
And give them runway within the company. But if it doesn't work, don't be afraid to part ways. It's a disservice to the team member if you're keeping them here when you know it doesn't work.
What's the ideal runway?
Depends on the role because the jobs are very different.
Yeah.
What a factory line worker does versus what somebody in the lab does versus somebody who is, you know, selling to customers. Like, these are very, very different jobs.
Yeah.
So understanding the specific context in which somebody operates and designing the appropriate incentives around that context, it requires time and understanding.
What's the... For each of those roles, let's say, like for a sales role, what's the ideal runway? The
sales cycle in our industry is very long.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So it's more a matter of, are we seeing incremental de-risking happening on a continuous basis, and are we seeing that the relationship with the counterparty is being strengthened? There's not a perfect science to this.
Yeah, so it's
in
very
a SaaS
qualitative,
company, you could say, like, did you generate X in sales this quarter?
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that in a hard
In a hard tech company, it's quality of relationships and like how they're strengthening and...
But the pool of available people who have deep relationships in the industry to do a commercial role at a company like ours, it's very small.
Right. That's what I would imagine.
Like, there's like 100 people in the world
Yeah.
who make all the decisions in the global battery supply chain.
Yeah. And there are probably 100 of them who know them.
And everybody knows each other.
Yeah. So you need one of them. I see. Interesting. So the sales hire in a hard tech company is more of a network-based hire, right? I would say. And then you're...
and give people a chance, right?
Yeah.
Like, if people don't have the appropriate network, but they have other skills that are needed to succeed.
To be able to build that network.
Yeah. Like, I'll give you one example of this. Every member of our commercial team speaks Korean, whether they live in the United States or not. And they're not all ethnically Korean either. Yeah.
Is Korea a big customer?
3 of the world's 5 largest battery cell makers are in South Korea.
Oh, interesting.
So I spend a week every month in South Korea. I think the culture is amazing. I think the people are wonderful.
Right.
I really enjoy going over there and doing business over there. I feel very comfortable doing business over there.
Interesting. Okay, so you have to give people a runway. That's a good takeaway. How do you evaluate for passion in an interview?
It will be obvious. By the time they even get to me, they've had to go through so many interview stages that they really want to be there by the time they get to me.
So it's like persistence, getting to the end and maintaining the same zeal in the interview and the same enthusiasm. Like it becomes obvious. Do you do them in person or?
I try as much as I can, but because of the nature of my job being a relatively travel-heavy job, it's not always possible. You also need to move on quality candidates with speed, right? Like, if I'm gone for 10 days to Korea, I'm not going to make somebody wait 10 days.
Yeah.
I'll just pull out my phone and Zoom with them for 40 minutes, and that's it.
Go from there. Yeah. What have you learned about sales?
That in my industry, it's a very long process. Be patient. Understand that there's zigs and zags. This whole piece around emotional runway and emotional control applies to sales as well.
What's the art of a good deal?
The timing has to work out. You can be the most qualified person with the best product, but if the counterparty is not lined up with the right timing on their side to get all the decision makers to sign off, you will just not win the deal. A lot of this is figuring out what is the right timing, not necessarily what's the right positioning.
Oh, interesting.
In my industry, right?
I see.
Sales is very different industry than industry.
Yeah, sure.
In hard tech, when you're developing something like us, when you have to put hundreds of millions of dollars of capex into the ground to build the facility that you're building, one defining customer early in the journey will make the entire company successful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you use that as the basis upon which you go and build with other customers as well. NVIDIA, I love talking about NVIDIA. They don't have 4 chip fabs that they're working with. They work with TSMC.
Right.
Apple doesn't work with 5 different phone makers. They work with Foxconn. Yeah. Likewise, we will be successful with 1 or 2 major customers taking down the most, like the preponderance of our production. There will be other smaller customers.
Yeah.
The industry is more multifaceted than just these 5 large cell makers.
Right.
But it's not like Microsoft, which has 1 million accounts that they sell to,
Hmm.
right? And even their largest account
Right.
is probably a percent of a percent of a percent of their revenue. Like our largest account will be like 40% of our revenue.
And it'll be a lifetime account, sort of.
It'll be life of program account, right?
Yeah.
Because in automotive, the programs run 7 to 10 years.
Right. Interesting. Who are your biggest customers?
Well, right now, we are focused on the major Korean battery cell makers and the automotive OEMs in the West who are all looking for iron-rich cathode active material and a non-China production asset solution.
That's how timing is playing a role, right? This is where...
Policy intercepts. I mean, so
Yeah.
we're recording this interview.
Yeah.
What is it now? July 8th, 2025. President Trump is going to announce reciprocal tariff letters tomorrow. The One Big Beautiful Act bill in the United States, Congress passed on July 4th, 3 days ago. Policy and regulation play a huge role in cost of competitiveness of our product, which plays a huge role in customer willingness to buy from us.
Do you end up spending a lot of time in DC? A lot of hard tech entrepreneurs I know are in DC like every other month.
I do spend a lot of time in DC. I really enjoy it. Part of it is that, I'm just proud to be American. So I know that when you opt into a job at senior levels in DC, you have many other options in the private sector that would pay you more.
Yeah.
You're there because you want to be there. And I've very much enjoyed the opportunity to interact with some of our nation's leaders on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
We founded this company when Donald Trump was president, then Joe Biden became president, and then Donald Trump became president again.
Yeah.
We've worked with Republicans and Democrats alike. Everybody wants to see more job creation in the United States. Everybody wants to see more competitive technology creation in the United States.
Yeah. Reindustrialization, do you think, is bipartisan?
Reindustrialization is absolutely bipartisan, but for different reasons. So you apply different lens on talking about the economy, talking about the climate, talking about job creation based on the audience that you deal with.
Yeah.
There's no political basis to argue that more technology creation and job creation in the United States is a bad thing. It is political suicide for anybody of any stripes to say that they don't agree with more job creation.
Yeah. So more on sales. You're saying the cycles are long. It's like more than positioning. It's timing and what else comes to mind like when you're interacting with some of these sales leaders across your biggest customers?
What is the incentive of a person who works at a large company when it comes to buying something? They're not trying to buy the best solution possible. They're trying to buy the solution that doesn't get them fired.
Correct.
Betting on a startup increases your probability that you'll get fired.
How do you mitigate that risk?
We have strategic partners. We have partners who have a track record in history,
right,
and are willing to come along with us for the ride because we bring something that they don't.
Right.
Which is we bring technology advantages with our AI approach for product development. We bring access to significant non-dilutive capital from the U.S. government, where we're the only company in the United States to have that access for that specific grant.
Right. Is it a DOE grant?
Yeah.
So that adds like trust and, that sort of...
The greatest technology investor ever in human history.
Yeah.
Ever. I will debate any of you on this. Is the United States government. When the U.S. government bets behind you and says, after months of diligence...
I mean, they created Silicon Valley, so yes.
They put a man on the moon. They created militaries. Like, I'm not poo-pooing other governments and other investors.
Right.
I'm just saying that if you look at value creation from technology investing, foundational technologies invested on by the U.S. government.
The internet.
Just look at GDP growth over the last 250 years.
Right.
It's phenomenal what the world has done and what the U.S. has done for the world.
So a DOD, DOE grants,
I mean, like NSF, NIH, like NSF, these government institutions matter a lot.
Right.
And the funding actions and their role as capital allocators and deciders of prioritization for capital allocation has a ripple effect across the capital markets all the way down to even your seed investors. So winning a DOE grant was a huge sign of validation for us in saying that we have the backing of the United States government and all of our competitors do not.
And that earns that trust with some of your biggest customers that...
Exactly right.
For them, the biggest thing matters.
Nobody will diligence us harder than the government.
Right.
You know why?
Yes.
Because nobody wants to be in a position to have to defend themselves against the public for making...
Taxpayer dollars,
for making a poorly thought out decision. So as much as any investor can try, and please don't try, but as much as any investor can try, you will never diligence harder than the U.S. government.
Okay,
what we
for
had to
sure.
get through to get this DOE grant, I will tell you, nobody will diligence us harder than that.
Can you share like size of the DOE grant and like how
Yeah,
long
we've already publicly announced that we've got $100 million from the DOE.
How long did it take?
Well, ever since the founding of our company to winning that grant was nearly 4 years. And we have been in constant interaction with the DOE.
Yeah, building trust,
Yep.
like communicating progress. And
Yep, until June 27th, 2024, when we went to the DOE for a final interview.
oh wow.
And yeah, it was a 1-hour interview, but behind that 1-hour interview was hundreds of pages, dozens of conversations, like a lot of time I spent in Washington, D.C.
And this 100 million, is it like industry first?
It was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law and the grants that they gave out. So they came up with multiple different categories of battery supply chain companies they wanted to support.
Yeah.
It's just that for our specific
Use case.
use case, we're the only ones who won. All the multiple people applied.
Right. Wow. Congrats. That's like.
Thank you.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Big
I think we
step.
could probably do a whole podcast on like getting government funding.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, how you deal with the DOE is different than how you deal with the DOD is different
Yeah.
than how you deal. It's publicly known that InQtel
Yeah.
is an investor of ours.
Yeah.
And InQtel is the venture capital arm of the U.S. intelligence community.
That also like a signal of, that's a signal of trust for like some of the government departments. You go from there. That like, you know,
Yep.
that's how you start building networks. It's when I started when I was in DC last time, when you were speaking at to the cohort, I was in DC and I was trying to get the lay of the land, and I'm still trying to get the lay of the land. I think like 4 years later, I'll probably have more progress.
And 4 years later, there will be a different administration.
And then there will be a different administration. Yeah.
Change is a constant when
Yeah.
it comes to DC.
Yeah.
I think it's the democratic system that we have works. It has its flaws,
Yeah.
but by the time you feel like you figured out somebody or something, there's new people.
There's. Yeah.
So you have to constantly be on your game. In person is a big component of this.
Yes.
I love going to DC.
Yeah.
I love meeting people. 2 days after my child was born, I went and met the president at the White House, which was a phenomenal experience. And
Wow.
yeah, when it rains,
Yeah.
it pours, right? Like a lot happened at once.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I ever got to that level.
Yeah.
But before that was, like 40 trips where I met senior staff, like appointed staff, a couple of elected staff, and like
Yeah.
you build up, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden you get recognized as an expert in the field, and
Yeah.
the president and chief of staff and secretary of energy are calling you, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't happen overnight,
Yeah.
but it can happen to anybody.
And DC is very similar to enterprise or like corporate sales, right?
Very much
It's-
so. The sales cycles are very long, though.
And all in person. Most of the trust is being built in person.
Exactly right. And the networks
Yeah.
are very small.
Yeah.
If you think about who has decision-making authority, it's a very small group of people.
Yeah, but you have to climb up to them.
Yeah. And it's possible.
Yeah.
The opportunity exists.
Yeah. Outlast
Outlast the competition.
the competition. What is a company you would like to see get built, or a problem you'd like to see get solved?
So I would love to see a privately funded international space station.
Ditto. Okay.
If you think about it, there's less than 100 human beings who've been able to go and live in space.
Right.
I would love to see millions of human beings go get to live in space for the novelty, for the scientific value,
Right.
for the redundancy of humanity. And what we need to do is we need to bring the cost of getting to space and the risk of human life in space down to do that. But I think that in my lifetime, I expect to see that happening.
How did you develop an interest in space?
Oh my God, I've always wanted to be an astronaut since I was a kid. I thought that was the ultimate thing that you could do as an engineer.
We never even got to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean that's an hour-long podcast.
That's
itself,
the
right?
podcast on its own. Yeah.
No, but I expect that in my lifetime, like I will go to space.
Yeah.
And by the time I go to space, it won't be a big deal.
Yeah.
Like it'll just be
I think there will be an orbital economy in our lifetime.
in the same way that, what was it? I think Neil Armstrong was born on a farm in Ohio and didn't have a flushing toilet. And then he was the first man on the moon. And that was within his lifetime.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
I was born at a time before the internet. And by the time, I die 100 years from now, going to space will be like, I don't know, flying from here to London.
I hope so. Okay, prediction last. What does the future look like 25 years from now? And what would need to happen in the next 5 years to make progress towards that future?
AGI is further away than people think. There's a lot of hoopla right now in Silicon Valley that AI is going to displace all these jobs. I run a business now that has a manufacturing component in addition to a research component.
Yeah.
White collar jobs and knowledge work can get displaced very fast by today's AI solutions. But displacing blue collar factory workers, given all of the abstraction of work that needs to happen, is highly contextual and harder than people think it is. So 25 years from now, I think we'll be closer and closer to, AI has eaten everything in the way that people think. But I don't think it's 5 years from now.
I think so too. I think it's further away. And we're overly optimistic. Oh, with that, Vivas, thank you so much. I feel like we could easily do part 2 on your space interest and making a business case for a private space station, which we're going to get to chat about, or government sales, 4 years of selling to DOE. So I think I'd love to come back for part 2.
Yeah, and thanks for doing this podcast. I think it's an amazing opportunity to spread knowledge, but also have the difficult conversations with founders that, most people would get the benefit from hearing. I would love to hear from other founders as well on your podcast. And I hope that they will tell the things that they wish had been told them when they were founding their company as well.